Welcome to the Charleston Marketing Podcast, powered by the Charleston American Marketing Association, broadcasting from our home base at Charleston Radio Group. Thanks to CRG, we're able to talk to the movers and shakers of Charleston, from economy to art, from hospitality to tech, and everything in between. These leaders have made a home here in the Lowcountry. They live here, they work here, they make change here. Why? Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome to the Charleston Marketing Podcast, powered by the Charleston American Marketing Association. We are in the Charleston Radio Group studios while Cause Films is behind the camera, both supporters of CAMA. Let's not forget the talented Jerry Feelsgood with beats at the front and end of the show. Woo. Thank you to all of our supporters. Hey guys, I'm Stephanie Barrow, your CAMA past president and founder of Stephanie Barrow Consulting, a digital strategy agency here in the Lowcountry. I'm joined here with my fellow co-host, Mike Compton.
Hey.
What's
up,
Mike?
Listeners? Stephanie, how are you?
I'm great, babe. How are you?
Real good, thanks. Mike Compton here, your Director of Membership Experience and the president and co-founder of Roombo, GoRoombo.com, an agency. We're here with a special guest, a good friend of mine. We worked on a few projects together, haven't we, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, a few at this point.
Agencies working with agencies, that's what it's all about, man. It's all about collaboration. This is Michael Gasser of Squeeze. Hi, Michael.
Hi,
Thanks
Mike.
for coming.
Yeah. The agencies working with agencies thing is always, that's funny. It's like everybody's got their specialty.
Everybody's got their specialty.
You gotta leverage
and
that.
That's what we're trying to do here at the Charleston American Marketing Association is kind of like leverage that and work together. Kumbaya. Okay.
I'll let you talk a little
Kumbaya.
bit about how awesome Michael is, but I would like to shout out real quick to Squeeze Marketing because they did our AMA website. So.
Squeeze is the great agency that is pro bono, by the way, taking care of our what is it? Our organization's website.
Yes.
Which is charlestonama.org.
Yeah, we like to be able to do a few things with nonprofits and organizations where we identify with the mission, so those projects are fun.
I love the fact I talked you guys into that.
Mike, I need you to roll his awesome credits now. It's time for his credits.
So, Mr. Gasser is a military veteran. Thank you for your service, sir. And co-owner of and director of client strategy at Squeeze Marketing, the CMO of Pollen, and the head of the Crowdreach Holdings Advisory Board.
Awesome.
This is stuff we have to talk about. I don't know any
Sure.
of this stuff. I've known you for a little while. Michael graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 2006. That's pretty cool.
Unique college experience
Oh my
for sure.
gosh. And
which we will
served
dive into.
for 10 years as an Airborne Infantry Officer. Michael entered the marketing industry with one goal in mind, leverage emerging marketing platforms and technologies to connect businesses with their customers by building effective digital content marketing strategies. Michael and Squeeze Marketing understand the current digital landscape and have a track record of success, unique business growth strategies for their clients. That's a mouthful. I really was into the Airborne Infantry Officer thing. You were talking about your back being hurt a little bit. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's...
you were jumping out of planes, pal.
It feels like half of that is you describing somebody else's life. It was so long ago.
You've lived like 3
Wow.
lives just by looking
It's
through this.
yeah, there's a fun little path to get to where we are today. So
Well, we'll dig in a little
Yeah,
bit.
I wanna-
glad life's a little bit slower in some areas today than it was 15 years ago.
Are you still jumping out of planes for
Oh,
fun or
no,
no? No,
probably
you just
never will
decided
again.
not to do that? Yeah.
I've jumped out of a plane once, but it was
Did you?
tandem. Yeah.
Yeah.
I basically was like, throw me out of this plane, so I can't imagine doing this for a living.
He was doing it because
After-
it was for us.
I know,
Yeah,
that's
after-
amazing.
Yeah.
30 jumps and one parachute malfunction and a few other things. That's like, hey, I got the jumping out of airplanes
You did
out
it.
of my system.
You did it. Mark it off.
Yeah.
Check
Yeah,
box.
the
Check
block-
box.
No
block
dice.
is checked.
I tried to check that box just, again, selfishly, just to jump out of a plane, not for the United States, but
Sure.
for myself. And we didn't go up because the plane wasn't working right.
And
So
a
at
lot of-
that point, I was
Hey,
like,
fate.
I don't need to
You're
go.
good. You're
I don't need
good.
to go.
A lot of people don't realize that jumping for fun is
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a different experience. It's just a totally different thing than military jumps.
I believe it.
Like there's
I
no
would understand,
free
yeah.
fall. There's
Yeah.
no pull your chute. There's no steer your chute. None of that stuff's in play with a
Oh.
military jump.
Oh, okay.
You hook up to the airplane, and when you jump out, the airplane flying away from you pulls your chute out. Right.
So interesting.
And,
I had no idea. So
Yeah, so that presents a bunch of different risks and things.
I can imagine.
And also, rarely when skydiving are there 350 people in the air at once over one field, you know?
Sure.
So it's all sorts of things go on. It's
Super
Definitely
intense.
sounds like prone to accident time.
it's high adventure.
But
adventure.
you had an accident with your but you're okay. You're
Yes,
here. I mean,
yeah.
when somebody says that my parachute malfunctioned, they're usually not saying that. They're usually,
The parachute malfunction
somebody's saying it for them.
There's a big scope of what that covers, from
gosh.
everything from not opening to just a slightly not ideal situation.
And you have a
So,
backup parachute, right?
yes, you have a reserve.
Reserve. is the
But
word I
there are
was looking for.
many complications that go into that not being the easy
All
button.
of this
it
makes
sounds
me
like.
really regret my 22-year-old self who jumped out of that airplane, and God knows what could have happened to me. So
So it was 2006 when you decided to.
So I graduated from West Point in 2006.
mhm.
I was a senior in high school during 9/11. So like that, we watched it in English class. It had
Okay.
a big impact on me.
I was a senior in college, but go ahead.
And we don't have to date everybody.
I'm dating.
here. It's
I'm
fine.
dating. I'm dating.
But it had a big impact on me. I'd already started the West Point application process, and that kind of made service academies go from my ideal choice to the only choice I was considering.
I love that.
And then the more exposure I got to part of my job or even part of my academic experience being physical, hands-on, in the field, operational, the more I was like, this is absolutely for me. I was one of those kids that was not real easy for teachers to keep their hands around in the classroom, you know, not real in control in the classroom.
Sure.
Not having a great time in the classroom.
Well, they're looking at that now, aren't they? I mean, because
seems like
of
that's
kids like you.
seems
and
like that's a
us,
relatable
I'm
experience.
ADD too, right?
Yeah.
So it was tough for us to focus for 6 hours a day to do work. It's
I
interesting.
feel like the people that are geniuses now are coming out with the same kind of dialogue for their own lives, where they
Yeah.
just said like multifaceted, couldn't sit still in class, and
Yeah.
now they're taking all of that energy and all their thought power to like make something amazing.
Right.
Turns out when the job makes me half exhausted, I'm more centered and in control of my own thoughts. So it worked out. It was
That's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
So all of this history of you know, being in the military, and what brought you to Charleston?
Well, the Army brought me to Charleston initially. So
Okay.
I was finishing up time in company command, which was deployments. I got injured on my last deployment. Right before that last deployment was the parachute malfunction incident. And so in 1 year, I had all of my biggest injuries in the Army. And the Army, and I also did well in company command, and you kind of have to do well in certain jobs to be considered for a teaching job.
I
They're not
see.
let
Yeah.
anybody teach future officers, future NCOs, whatever that is. And so I clearly knew that I and my family needed a break after company command, but wasn't quite ready to get out of the Army. And so I got the job, which is surprisingly hard to get, teaching ROTC. And I didn't pick based on the college. I picked based on the city.
Sure.
As you do when you're looking for a family break. And so Charleston was on the list, and the Citadel was that school. So that was my last job on active duty, was teaching the juniors at the Citadel.
What were
and
you
the
teaching
Army. Small unit tactics, professional military ethics, law of war. And so it kind of
Law
spanned
of
the
war. I
gap
love it.
from...
That sounds very
Such a
efficient.
civilian.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible
It
civilian.
spun like went all the way from small unit tactics, map reading and land navigation up to the expectations of ethical decision making in a combat environment. So it's a big
So-
broad list of subjects.
Listener doesn't know this, but I know this because we spoke about it beforehand. That kind of laid the groundwork for your the conversation we're going to have later about your YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Don't
sure.
don't
So
don't
so I'm not
spoil
going
it
to
yet.
spoil,
We'll get
but
there.
this is a
We'll
little
get there.
foreshadow
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
a
we'll
little-
get there.
So you, I love the fact that you chose it because of the city, and that's what the kind of the storyline about the Charleston Marketing Podcast is about. Why Charleston?
Why do we
And
love
why do
the
we love
city?
Charleston so much?
Well, I ended up here halfway by accident, right? Like I didn't know, even coming into the end of my time in company command in the Army, I didn't really have ROTC teacher as on my radar as
Right.
an Army
Right.
station, duty station, and job, right? And so, as I started to see the list of what jobs are available, and I was like, oh, this could be an option, and this is not the 75-hour-a-week version of the Army I have right
Oh, boy,
now.
yeah.
It's more in line with a little bit more of a normal schedule.
Work-life balance for the
So we
family.
looked at it. We looked at the cities, and my wife had a great experience in Charleston growing up. Right, I
okay.
grew up in Augusta. She on the South Carolina side, North Augusta, and so we were close enough to have context. And then she did girls' state here as a
Yep.
kid, and all of that.
Did what now?
My friend Abby does Girl State.
Yeah,
what's Girl State?
It's basically like a mentoring program for as a high school?
Yeah, high school, and I think from my limited understanding
during
of
the
it,
summertime.
it gives you some insight into policy making, the workings of state and city government, and
Yeah.
just like how the world works at this local level.
Oh,
and-
introducing the state politics kind of level
Yeah.
two women, 2 girls.
Yes.
That's cool.
That's my understanding. And I may be off on that, but she had great experiences.
We're going to hold you to that.
And I am not their spokesperson, but so that kind of flavored the decision, right? And so we're like, hey, Charleston, we are a beach family.
Yeah. Same.
We like.
Do you surf? Do you all surf?
I am horrible at it,
My
but
kids surf.
I am a big fan of throwing my kids into waves on boogie boards.
Yeah.
it's
Me
a
too.
good time every time.
They
so
give lessons out on Folly. to
oh, I'm
kids.
aware. For me, I got to get over the fact that right now my hubris cannot handle the fact that 7-year-olds are way better than I am.
Your
So
hubris?
I'll get there.
What is this? Help me out. What
I'll
is
get-
a hubris?
It's time to get out the
my view of
thesaurus.
my own intellect or whatever. But,
Yeah.
but my
Oh,
boy.
This is
my
your
my humility
key
needs to get
takeaway
there.
of the day, friends. Your key takeaway.
My humility needs to get there so that I can my ego can withstand that surfing lesson.
Sure.
I'm that bad.
You're that smart. That's what that is.
Oh, but yeah, it's.
I get it.
But so we chose Charleston,
Mhm.
and choosing Charleston is based on some limited set of variables. Then we got here,
Okay.
right? And then we kind of realized what Charleston is, which I think it's a very special place because there's a few dynamics that make Charleston special for me, and one of the big ones is that it is, in my view, the perfect mix of people who grew up here and families have always been here and kind of have
This is what I
history continuity, right? Continuity with
yeah.
the history of the
Yes.
city.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
You go out to like Wadmalaw Island and some of these plantations that have the specific way they do historic preservation.
Right.
And I feel like there's not a lot of places doing it in a place with very contentious history
Sure.
Yes.
with that level of like nuance, and like they're doing it right. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And so like that's cool. And then half the city's transplants. And so it is the melting pot of the Southeast.
It really
So
is.
I
And
feel
like
too.
I feel like there's a few cities that qualify for that. Atlanta's one of them.
Mhm.
Charleston is absolutely one of them.
Mhm.
But like it's rare to find a city with that dynamic that's not a big metropolitan area.
Right.
And so it's like all those little things line up and it fits really well
Feels
for
like
us.
the best of
Microcosm.
all the worlds.
Yeah,
for me.
and it's a city full of weirdos, and I love weirdos with unique
I'm
stories.
attracted to weirdos
right?
too.
We all like the
I love the
weirdos.
weirdos.
Weirdos have better stories, and I'm
Yeah.
a stories guy. So
definitely.
so all of that kind of comes together, and then I'm sure kind of going from that, like I got out of the Army from
Right.
there,
Right.
and so getting out of the Army, I got to go find a job.
This is this
I
is
was
where I was
going to say,
gonna
did you
say.
start helping all the weirdos by making?
No. Well,
So I
you
did-
went from jumping out of planes
Yeah.
to teaching at the Citadel
Mhm.
Yeah.
to what you were. Hopefully, you were looking for a new job at the Citadel. Like
Sure,
you weren't
yeah.
teaching like.
So I knew
Good.
I saw the jobs that were potentially ahead of me in the
Mhm.
Army, and
Was there a certain job that you were doing in the Army outside of? Forgive my ignorance, but do you do anything else outside of jumping out? I'm not saying that.
Infantry.
so yeah, I was
Jumping out of
an
planes, but-
infantry
He was an
officer.
infantry officer.
So before the Citadel, I was an infantry officer.
Yeah.
So I was in command of 155 paratroopers.
Oh,
so
goodness.
Probably people
Company
right
command.
out of high
Um,
school, right?
I mean, average age is probably 25, 26,
Okay,
but
yep.
my first sergeant was 40.
Wow.
My direct NCO counterpart. I had platoon sergeants that were working for my platoon leaders that were in their 30s and 40s, but the vast majority of the soldiers are young, right? And
So you
it's
had
a
leadership
variety of people.
leadership experience, big time coming out of
Yeah,
that.
I mean that was the name of the game for
Yeah.
my Army career, and that's what
Yeah.
West Point gets you ready for. And
Perfect.
so, it's very natural for an Army officer to go into something that's heavy on operations and logistics,
Right.
as you would imagine. Operations and logistics is just what the Army does.
Yep.
And so, so I started looking for jobs, and it was just like, okay, well, corporate, big level operations and logistics is the obvious choice. And
Right.
so I stayed in South Carolina, but moved to the Greenville area to work for Tier 1 BMW supplier. Make parts that get bolted right into the BMW SUVs they make up
Sure.
there.
Sure.
Big $50 million project management, 200,000 square foot plant expansion that I was the project lead for. So this big consequential project.
A lot of OSHA supervisors walking around.
OSHA, yeah. And so
No cussing here.
no near misses. No
Nope.
near misses for OSHA.
No,
You don't want
OSHA
those.
is-
I know what
is,
OSHA.
but
Listener knows what the OSHA is.
yeah,
too, I'm sure.
so like compelling responsibility.
Right.
Absolute opposite when it came to leadership environment, work environment, and the things that I'd grown to expect as a standard in the Army. And that's not
Yeah.
going to be the case in all of automotive or all of
Corporate
operations or logistics.
USA.
Right.
But the individual personalities that were in leadership positions there, the organizational structure, a lot of that felt wrong to me. And there were a lot of examples, lesson learning opportunities of what not to do in leadership at that company, in that environment. And so it was a very quick education that my assumptions of what would be the right fit for me leaving the Army
Right.
were wholly incorrect. You
Well,
know?
okay.
And
Well, you're still young at this point. You
Yeah,
still got
you know, I
time to
was-
figure it
Got to
out.
find something to fuel the passion.
I got out of the Army a little bit before I turned 32.
Okay.
You know, early in your career at that
Mhm,
point. And
mhm.
so 10 years in the Army, but I'm still young.
Yeah.
And so what that job taught me in spades, unfortunately, is that while the work needs to be good and compelling, the people you're around at work matter more.
Mhm,
Like
mhm, mhm.
the people matter more.
Yep.
And then all that did is make me think, I got to get back to Charleston. Like,
Okay.
that's where the people are that I
Yeah.
want to be around.
Right. The weirdos. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I had the conversation with myself, with my wife, with some of my friends that at this point are so well accomplished, they're more mentors than friends, you know. That's kind of the luck of going to the school that I did, puts you around people in a cohort group that make you feel like an absolute scrub on a daily and weekly basis. So I've benefited a lot from that dynamic.
Yep.
And so I was like, we got to get back to Charleston, but like, what do I want to do? I have to have a job that can be in Charleston.
No
you know?
marketing. No marketing.
Nothing.
Anything
That's what
up
I've
until
been
right now.
waiting
But
for, because
okay.
I'm sitting
Not
there
even,
going,
like,
Yeah.
the word hasn't even entered the story
Yeah.
yet.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
And so, and that's important.
It is.
Because
Yeah.
what I took a couple of weeks, is like, who do I want to be talking to every day at work?
Mhm.
Right.
That actually is what defines your work experience,
Mhm.
is who you're interacting with and what you're working on with them. And I was like,
This
well,
is a very unique way to find your purpose.
Yeah.
I love the thought process of
I
finding
can't wait to
who
see
do you
one.
want to be with
it was
versus what do you want to do.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it was a more haphazard process than I'm describing now, but it was
No, I love it.
necessary to stumble my way through that, right?
Sure.
And so what I had identified in my first civilian job after the Army is kind of a pervasive unwillingness to take responsibility in that organization, right? Just on an individual level, but throughout the organization, unwillingness to take responsibility, be proactive, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, so let's go for the opposite of that. Let's go find the people who are not only take responsibility, but are compelled to and are required to based on what they do. You know, and I can't rejoin the military, where that's where they have that in spades. And to me, that was small business owners, because those are people who made the decision to leave the safety of a W-2 paycheck in many cases, or start without one and build something from nothing. That's like
Right.
the
You have to have
ultimate
a
form
certain-
of taking responsibility
Yep.
for your outcomes.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, what are they terrible at? What do they need help with? What area of vendors do they struggle to find the right people for? And that's kind of how I made the way into marketing. And I came at it from a technical, digital, numbers, data analysis, SEO, technical digital ads perspective. And then Squeeze became a thing because I merged with Brian and Eric, my two partners, who
Yes.
Got it.
Who
And-
are?
all of the other stuff.
Yeah. I
They
was
were
thinking, like
killing it at
Yeah.
all of the other stuff, and were working and advancing their.
very creative team here.
Yeah.
This is the guys we're talking about right now.
I
Very
can't-
creative.
I can't do the creative graphic design,
Yeah.
website design. That's not me.
Yeah.
But they are amazing at it. Right?
What did you do? Did you just take out an ad saying looking for two dudes that aren't
I-
military, that are creative, that like
Like
how in the world? Because I've seen you guys
Yeah.
together.
It works.
And
you
it works.
jive.
It works
I
very
feel like
well.
you guys
Very
were
well.
lifelong
Like,
friends.
But it's a lot
Yeah.
of fun. Exactly.
So-
yeah, this is interesting.
When I was in Charleston for the first time, I worked out at CrossFit James Island, and Brian used to just smoke me in those workouts.
oh well, then that.
So we
then
connected that way, and we
You're a
both
competitive
worked at the
guy,
Citadel.
so you're like, well, wait now.
He taught at the Citadel as well.
Oh,
he
he
went to
did?
graduate school there. Yep. He taught marketing, sports marketing
Oh.
stuff, and that's kind of where his background is as well. So so we met both at work and and then through workouts, and they just kind of stayed in touch.
So mutual respect and mutual interest started this relationship.
Question for the listener, and me mostly. You don't have to be military, Army, or anything like that to work at the Citadel.
No. So the Citadel is, and
I have a friend who's a professor who's not in the military.
We'll take a short tangent so I can explain this, because it's actually one
For
of the
the
biggest
listener.
misconceptions about the school.
Yeah,
and
Citadel.
I didn't go to the Citadel.
What happened? Oh, you want me to scoot over a little bit? All right.
So, like, I didn't attend the Citadel as a cadet. I've only taught there, right? But there's differences between the Citadel and a service academy. It's run by the state, not by the federal government.
Okay.
And the teachers, some teachers are retired military or in the National Guard or Reserves, and so they wear their uniform to work, right? They act sort of in a quasi-official capacity in that uniform at the Citadel. The TAC officers for the companies, those guys are almost exclusively retired military officers to have that kind of mentorship role and coming from that experience. But all of the civilian teachers, they wear a uniform to teach, and that confuses people. They are in a division of they are provisional South Carolina National Guard officers in some way, and I might be screwing up the specific
I get
words,
what you're trying to get here.
but it's like it's a specific little section of South Carolina.
They're allowed to wear the
National Guard
uniform
where all they do is teach, and they've got a little SC pin on their uniform that designates them as different than a DOD officer, for example. And then the ROTC departments function the exact same way as ROTC at any other civilian college.
So there's that one level where you can be a civilian and get a certain clearance, and then you can
you kind of
not necessarily
go through the hiring process, and you're given the authorities of a Citadel teacher through this provisional membership in South Carolina.
Neat. Thanks for that little tangent there. I had we'll take away
common
there.
misconception about the school. And I'm sure there's some Citadel graduates that listen to this like, this isn't even a Citadel guy and he's getting these things wrong. We're in the ballpark.
You're in the ballpark. and you know what? You can make a comment and then correct us in the comments.
That's what you do comments.
So you
for.
found your all-stars at Squeeze Marketing.
Yeah, your team.
Through the gym.
Yep.
Through the gym.
That is pretty cool. Like that's like a meet cute kismet movie story.
Yeah, well we just like
a love story almost.
We realized I was a year in, they were 2 years in, and we realized that we at this point had shared clients and were working projects together, and we just realized it was highly functional. Our services dovetailed nicely. I was trying to make it back to Charleston because I started this when I still lived in the Greenville area. So I was trying to make it back to Charleston, and merging with Squeeze then was like the perfect way to make all of that happen the right way.
Now, I've worked in the marketing industry for 6 years now. I used to work at an agency called Trio Solutions here in Mount Pleasant, and there are a lot of marketing agencies in the Charleston area. Now, Squeeze does things a little bit differently.
Yes.
I love what you guys do.
What do you do differently there, Michael?
So, well, there's it's good to start with what we don't do. So there's a few areas where we've realized that the people who are the best at it kind of run their own business or freelance exclusively in that area. So there's a few things we just decided early on to not do and to work with the best people who do it, right? Photography, videography is the best example of that. We're not an IT managed services type of company, so we find the right IT people that we can refer our clients to. Yeah. And so what we've tried to do, and what I think makes Squeeze somewhat unique in our area of the market, is that in many cases when you talk to an agency, you talk to someone who is a consultant expert, and they tell you like, hey, here's all the things you should be doing. This is how I would go about achieving this goal. Sure. And they say, now go do that yourself or hire somebody to do it. Right?
I know a consulting company.
And
right there next to you.
Yeah. And then and those people tend to have the most strategy expertise. Yeah. Right. And then you have companies that have retainer packages, different levels, or a menu of services, and they say, tell us what you want us to do, and we'll do it. And so what we've tried to do is, through feedback from our clients and feedback from prospects on sales calls and stuff, what we realized is when you can put those together and have the same team operating with that internal strategy guidance and execution and strategy input throughout execution, you get the better outcome. So we've tried to combine that strategy expertise, input to where they should be going, how they should be closing the gap between where they are and where they want to be, and then execute those campaigns and have that constant evolving strategy input the whole time. So
I got a question, Michael. How did you get so good at strategy? Because I'm pretty sure it's your part.
Yeah,
and you didn't go to school.
No, I have
for
an
it, so-
economics degree, basic business development background.
Love it.
So just like the nuts and bolts of how businesses work, how profit and loss statements work, and that kind of stuff, gave me enough background to be speaking the business development language.
Okay.
And then from there,
Like self-taught type of stuff here,
yeah,
like a
all
little
is.
trial and error.
It's good to know that you can, like, the information is available out there. I hate being asked questions that are Googleable, right? It's almost offensive to be asked Googleable questions because all that stuff.
Interns should take that very seriously.
It's all out there.
If you're an intern, and
right?
you're asking a question you can Google. You Google it. Don't ask me.
And so it all came as a result of me figuring out how to do what I recognized the client needed. And so as we progressed with just, I started with just delivering digital ads and SEO as a service, then merged with Squeeze and we're a full service agency. But over time, as we have the conversations with clients and prospects, a lot of the what should I do or what service should I hire you questions came up.
And you're digging in.
I love that you're a numbers guy because you really can deliver a high ROI on people's services.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to know the numbers to understand what an appropriate return on advertising spend is to say you have a valid campaign you should continue with, right? So like just understanding the details of those numbers and really like what that took was, it's like, okay, I have to be the best at this to be valid, And so I started reading every single Google algorithm update, taking all of the online classes for Google Ads, everything from traditional advertising strategy to extremely cutting-edge digital advertising platform capabilities. And I was doing all of that while I was still working that automotive job.
Oh, okay. So there was a little bit of time there where you were digging into marketing.
My process of starting was go to work, come home, do the afternoon dinner with the kids, get them in bed, and then work from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. on the business and just repeat 7 days a week.
That's the way to do it.
Because your kids are
really
2016, 2017.
Yeah, no
you
kidding.
get young kids.
So my kids then, we had one baby, one 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
That's
So
what I'm hearing is that you have an awesome wife.
It's busy.
Okay.
It's full.
That's making
full.
life happen.
But so it's mostly just like recognizing the need and then obsessively trying to be the best at filling that need.
But you've done some really sneaky cool websites.
Yes, and I cannot take a lot of credit for how cool they look.
But your team has done some really cool stuff.
And the key is that our whole team has pushed that. Like we need to be the best at these things where we identify the biggest gap in opportunity for these businesses or the biggest gap in service availability for what they want. And at the end of the day, everybody says, I want my website to look unique. I want it to it's out like that.
But they do.
That's as common as the grass is green and the sky's blue.
I want a CMS
when it's done by you versus other people.
And that's what we hope to accomplish.
I think that's the highest honors being like that is Squeeze Marketing.
It's an exciting thing to hear about my agency.
It's true though. It's very, very true. In fact, I think you've won a lot of Spark Awards.
We have the branding website design awards and TJ, our designer, is excellent. He's the key. We talk to clients all the time. It's like we can make your design happen. All we need and what you really have to have and what you can't be lacking on is the vision. Right? Like we can take a vision and make it happen, but without a vision for what you want to be, like we can't make you awesome in a vacuum of information. So TJ and Brian and Eric are particularly good. Our creative director, Lily, are particularly good at understanding a vision and turning that into something visual. I'm not a visual guy, but what I understand are how to very, very efficiently go get us visibility to a certain person in a certain place, leveraging current platforms, right?
And so, how do you make those decisions?
Through data.
Yeah, data is a huge part of it, and something I just became obsessed with after I left the Army is just diving deep into psychology as a subject. So how people make decisions. That's the core of advertising. It really is. Like advertising and marketing is incentivizing a customer to make the decision you'd like them to make.
So you're reading these books now. You're diving into
for a decade
psychology now. For a decade now.
I've basically audited a second bachelor's degree in psychology on YouTube, and like I said, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all free. It's all there.
It's all there.
And so, yeah, that's.
I'm curious, as an agency, because for me, I'm constantly hearing like WordPress updates, Elementor updates, moving to Squarespace, moving to all these different platforms to build your website on. Not to mention all the different social media platforms and the short form videos and the reels and the shorts and keeping up with all the Joneses in a sense. Like, how as an agency do you educate yourself on what is the new, what you need to be on top of? Because that's really where the money is. Like,
so
the new thing.
What we come back to with our agency to client conversation is we want to inform decision making. Right. Like, informed decision making is everything, because a business owner making informed decisions, they're going to be making those decisions with the growth of their business in mind, and if they're informed, they're good ones for the most part, right? And so what we've done over time to address that is, number one, the best source of what we should be learning is what questions we're being asked by the client, right? And so we get questions, what should I build my website on? Right? And so, like, we get these questions and we're like, okay, we need to have the highest expertise to be able to answer that question. And so as we've developed, those questions are right in front of you every week, know? And so we just recognize those areas where we have to develop deep expertise. And then it's just the diligence of doing the research, understanding the capabilities, looking at all the feedback, looking at what the people who are doing it really, really well are using. And over time, we've and then staying current, right? Because the right answer to the question in 2011 is very different than the right answer to the question in 2023.
In 2011, I think the answer to that when I was working were like Drupal. Do you remember the Drupal website?
Magenta for e-commerce.
Magenta.
Yeah, Magento.
Oh, Magento.
Yeah, Magento
that's right.
for e-commerce. And really, like,
Drupal websites.
Now we talk.
Beast.
Now we talk. If you're working with an agency, you're likely building your site on WordPress or Shopify.
Yep.
Right.
If you're just getting started, you're likely using an easy builder platform. Pick Wix. It's better.
Squarespace,
Wix.
Wix.
Yeah. Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, all of those.
Yeah, all the same.
And then,
I think the SEO for those are pretty questionable.
Wix makes it a little bit easier on the SEO side, but WordPress is the gold standard. And,
amen.
You hear that, listener?
And then just don't build websites on the platform that your URL registrar offers. Don't use GoDaddy Builder,
definitely
stuff
not.
like that.
No,
so, like, we learned how to give that input, and then we learned over time also what point in the timeline the business owner might be making that decision in a vacuum, right?
Yep.
And so we've kind of gotten better at intuitively, like, weighing in before they ask the question.
Right.
And when we do that before they ask the question, we can avoid them hitting the tripwire before we can get to them,
Oh, yeah.
and kind of spending money on stuff that they're going to have to walk back and re-spend the money to do it right.
I see what you did there.
Not every client should be on every social media platform.
Don't step on landmines.
No.
Things like that. So yeah, it's 5-6 years ago, we were not as good at any of these, like, strategy input, question and answer stuff with clients, and we just had to be very, very diligent and say, like, they need someone who's an absolute expert and who they believe is an absolute expert, so that when we give them that input, they have all the confidence in it. Because it doesn't work if we give them the input, they don't believe us, and then they go do something else, right? And that's whenever that's the case, that's our fault, because we're not giving them the confidence in our expertise if that's the case. So we just, obsess about that.
Yeah.
Since you're so up to date on all the marketing trends, what's your thoughts on AI?
So in a snapshot, AI tools will not replace people, but individuals who are extremely proficient and current with AI tools will replace teams of people. That's like the headline, right?
Okay.
But
I'll take that.
Really, right now, AI is in a place where it's mostly language models, at least the tools we have accessible to ourselves. So large language models are great. They're in a place right now where it's probably the best brainstorming tool that exists.
Yeah.
Like,
100. Yes.
I use ChatGPT 4 to brainstorm ideas.
For names for podcasts. For the description on our YouTube page for the Charleston Marketing Podcast.
We'll get to it in a little
AI.
bit, but my silly YouTube channel, like, I come up with the titles for videos with input from GPT-4.
Oh.
But what's important is you can't copy something out of ChatGPT-4 and ship it to a client.
Right. No,
Like,
exactly.
that's-
I've actually tested this before,
Brainstorming.
and there's been major brands who've taken, like, entire blogs and just put it up there as on multiple different.
So
No kidding.
the best guidance I can give you for
Yes.
ChatGPT and how to use that for blog writing
Right.
is have ChatGPT give you an outline for the blog you want to
Yep.
write, then you go write it.
There you go.
It's
Right.
kind of like a Cliff Notes.
Yeah,
That's how I
and
use
so that's where it's at right now. That may change. It may not change with kind of what you can do or like how close the output of the AI tool is to something you can ship to a client,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But something that's relatively new, and the CMO head of product for Pollen that you mentioned in the bio is something where we can talk about this. But AI is in the process now of being integrated into marketing platform tools in a way that make everything you do on it more efficient and like time efficient, really. And the places that we're seeing that are like a CRM,
Yep.
where you get an inquiry from a prospective client or customer, and a lot of those responses are very repetitive to kind of move the conversation forward. And so you'll see CRMs come up where it has automated fill. You know how Gmail will kind of finish your sentence for you?
Yes.
Imagine if they wrote the whole email for you, right? So like integrating ChatGPT 4 into a CRM where it's the version of that you get is kind of filtered for this purpose. And within the CRM, you can respond to those emails, and it kind of automates the email. You make some little adjustments. There are even versions of this where there's a drop-down box that allow you to change the tone of what it's writing from close friend to acquaintance to business professional.
kidding.
Right.
And then,
Grammarly does that. I'm a big fan of Grammarly. We're like, this tone is this. and-
yes, exactly. And so
helps.
then you'll start to see higher level versions of that where start to integrate things like Midjourney, where the AI is starting to make the media that you're going to use for the social post while GPT-4 is writing the caption for
Right.
the social post. Then you get into systems where you say, make my content calendar based on my last 100 posts for my brand voice and image style.
Sure.
And just AI tools send you a content calendar fully done, already in your social media posting
It's wild.
platform where all you have to
Constantly
do is
changing.
hit the button, and all of those social posts made by AI are then posted by that platform on your
Feels
behalf.
like we're
After
cheating.
you've edited, after you've gone through them,
I
right?
don't know how
and
I
as
feel
it gets
about
better,
it.
it'll
I think I'm gonna
require
stick to copywriting
Less
of an
editing,
editing filter,
yeah.
ideally, or the data
thank
it's
you.
working off of is its baseline input is good enough or deep enough as a data set that it's way more accurate even at its starting point to brand voice and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Where do you get all your information? Is it YouTube? Where are you getting this information from here?
So
Tell us your secrets, Michael.
when it comes to technology, AI, things
Mm-hmm.
like that, and where they're going. So what I've done is I've tried to curate my own list of people that I go to for most up-to-date information.
Okay.
Right. So like different subject, but geopolitics. Guy named Peter Zion.
Okay.
Right. Zion on geopolitics will in 8 minutes a day will keep you kind of up to speed on what the heck's going on in the world.
Oh, okay.
And so what I try and do is find concentrated, efficient, regular sources of the information I need to move these things forward. And so the Lex Friedman podcast is he's a AI and robotics engineer who has really, really
Taking notes
interesting people in technology on his podcast for these 2-3 hour conversations. And so when he's got an AI scientist on, when he brought on the founder of ChatGPT-4 and OpenAI,
Ooh.
right? Like that's the
That's a compelling
information right from the
conversation right there.
source, and the person asking him questions is an AI engineer. So he's
Yeah.
asking informed questions.
Informed questions.
And so you don't need to read all the white papers. You don't need to Google for 4 hours. You can go listen to that and have a really concentrated, distilled version of what's coming next.
So
I
no
love
excuse, he says. No
Lots
excuse
of-
for if you have a passion and if you want to dive into something, you don't need to go to the school. You don't need to go to the whatever. You just need to have enough drive and want to know the knowledge. It's all right there at your fingertips.
Well, the degree is
Absolutely.
just your initial training,
right.
right? Like if you
have
think
to
about
constantly,
For some of us, degrees are no longer relevant because it was so long ago. And for like social media, what was 5 years ago is no longer what's present today.
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to reteach myself
yeah.
what the new is just to stay on the tip of the iceberg without.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
You have
You gotta
to.
do.
And like
It is
the
what it
best
is.
way to
Have to.
think about it is structured traditional education environments are initial entry training only, right?
Yeah.
But every career, to progress in that career, to get better at what you do, initial entry training is not good enough to have that long-term result.
Absolutely.
It's the continuing education that really drives that forward and kind of elevates how you can operate, like if you like there's a guy on YouTube for every one of those subjects. You
Right.
go
Or gal.
to
Yep.
like the Alpha Gaming channel, I think it's called Senpai Gaming now, but like that's how I figured out how to start a YouTube channel.
Right.
There's just
So-
the guy out there who's educating people on all of the hardware, software, workflows, style, like get better at making videos, go take a storytelling class.
Right.
Like go sign up for masterclass.
Right, right. This is a good time right now, listener. This guy's got he's like an onion with all these layers here. He doesn't
You go
smell
on
like
and
an
on
onion.
and
though. You're making me cry a little bit with all this this great knowledge. You have a YouTube channel, Michael. Talk about it.
Yeah. So I am a gamer,
He's a gamer.
and I turned 40 next year,
Thank you for saying that.
and I have this rare case where somehow I feel none of the shame of being a near 40-year-old gamer.
Good for
It's
you.
just not. It's time spent doing things that bring you joy is time well spent.
Love it.
Right. So whatever
And
that
it's a
thing
family
is,
affair we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I've got kids who are gamers,
Right.
and so it's something I can connect with my kids on. It's something I enjoy doing alone in a dark room or with my kids in the living. Like I like playing video games, and
Yeah.
I've got the military background, first-person shooter stuff. GoldenEye, N64.
I love some GoldenEye.
The real connoisseurs will know
Back
what I'm
in the
talking about
day,
there.
yeah.
And Call of Duty.
No, I didn't get into Call of Duty. 007 was a...
The crazy thing is we'd go on these 14, 16-hour patrols in combat. We'd get back to the Fort
Are
Operating
you in
Base
real
with
life
combat
right now, or
outposts.
are you in gaming? Right?
chairs?
Where are
I'm
you
trying
right
to
now?
envision this.
Real life combat patrol in
Yes.
Afghanistan. We
Yes.
get back, and
Oh,
all
yeah.
the soldiers want to do is talk trash to each other and play 1v1s in Call of Duty.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So
That's
like,
I wasn't aware of
like
that. Okay.
soldiers love first-person shooter games, but I think any group that is a concentrated group of dudes in their 20s likes first-person shooter games,
Yes.
no matter where you are,
Yes.
right?
All the men in this room are nodding.
Yeah,
so
I was in
everybody
everyone in the
knows.
my frat
studio
house.
is
Yeah.
affirming
Jake is
my
very
assessments.
enthusiastically
Yeah.
nodding.
Yeah.
So
And so, and then, so playing all these video games as I like finding time. You deploy and you're like, well, I guess I'm not playing video games for 9 months or a year, but that's fine. So,
Thank you again for your service.
yeah, I
I
respond to that
down for a
with
minute.
it was the most fun job I could have possibly done for me in my 20s.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
and they paid me, so it's not like I did it for
And
free.
you got all the leadership experience.
Yeah, it was valuable. But so I.
You're a gamer
COVID,
now. Now you're on YouTube, and you have how many?
Well, COVID started,
Okay, I don't
and
wanna skip any.
everybody's working from home.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
had extra time.
I remember
right?
when you
I
started
needed a
telling
little
me
bit
about
of
this.
escape
Was
from
it before COVID though?
it. I started
When you
it
started this?
the April after COVID, like literally a month and a half after COVID.
Really?
I feel
kicked
like
off.
YouTube just exploded during COVID.
It was yeah, absolutely. And so more people at home, so
Yeah.
more people watching YouTube, so opportunities there, numbers are increasing, but also
Nothing's in production, no TV
I
shows,
needed
nothing
something
news coming out.
Right.
that felt like an escape from my house because I was stuck in my house all day.
Good point.
And then you can't escape from your house in that environment because everything's closed and there's nothing to go do. So I needed a digital escape as an avenue. And so I just had something to put effort into, like learning new things. That's something new to learn. And so I started live streaming 4 days a week and making YouTube videos around Call of Duty. But I had kids, so I kind of switched from PC and console to mobile gaming.
Okay.
And so
Oh.
Call of Duty Mobile was brand new, and so I just went hard in the paint on like making videos that were fun to make on that. And then it started to take a turn,
Yeah.
which I absolutely didn't expect. But I'm a dad in that environment. All of these other content creators that I play with, these other
Right.
YouTubers, way
How
bigger
many years
than me.
later? How many?
We're a year into this
Okay.
YouTube
Okay.
thing, right?
Yeah.
So spring 2021, I'm kind
Okay.
of starting to realize this is
You're getting these DMs.
I get DMs and they were all questions that these kids should have asked their dad,
Okay.
right?
I love this story.
But
Okay.
what broke my heart is that dad wasn't there for them to go get that
Ugh.
input, right?
Yeah.
Like
course.
absentee dad not in the picture, dad's not the right guy to ask this question, whatever that
So
is.
you're
Right.
filling a huge void.
Well, they were serious life questions.
Oh wow.
Right? Like, this is my struggle. I don't know what to do kind of
Wow.
questions, And what that kind of opened my eyes to is that my dad was fantastic, right?
Mhm.
It caused me to look back and realize I had just this easy button for all of this great input.
You weren't aware at the time.
He's a C-level officer at a
Right.
Fortune 500 company. He's very, very successful, and he came from a somewhat humble background as well, so he's got perspective. And I had all this input. No way would I've made the whole West Point application process actually happen, turn in all the things on time,
Right.
go to the interviews with congressmen and senators to get the appointment, if he wasn't there helping, like, shepherd me through that
Gotcha.
process
Sure.
a little bit, right?
Yep.
And so I realized that without even knowing it at the time, I had this parental input that was so influential and positive for me being able to accomplish cool things, right? Or at least have the opportunity. And it's, most people can identify that absentee fatherism in America is a relatively pervasive problem.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it just looked to me like, hey, there's an avenue here where I can address this problem I've identified at scale.
Okay.
And so the goal with the gaming channel stuff, and the channel's in transition right now to much more focused on this area, is use gaming as an avenue to conversation with young people, because that's the audience.
Yep.
And then be in a position where, like, I can provide input they may not, like, really, really needed input that they may not be getting from the normal places that they should get it from.
Yeah.
So, and that's just a more fulfilling version of all of that.
So over the course of the last couple of years, we've been building this community and this connection, especially since COVID, no one can leave their homes. And you're resonating with all of these children. Is it worldwide?
Yeah. How are you? Children? Are they adults? I mean,
How old are the?
What I would say is it's probably 60% U.S., 25% English-speaking Western Europe, and the rest is worldwide. And
cool.
And so, yeah, it's crazy that that platform allows you to reach an audience at scale so quickly.
You're a worldwide dad right now.
I know.
This
Have you
is what
met,
we're going
have
on
you
right
met
now.
any of these? Have you they come see you on the street?
I have.
Yeah.
It's a weird experience.
I
The
bet,
first
I
few times
bet.
someone
So
recognizes
this is like a virtual
you.
thing, or is this a?
No, so eventually it got to the point where events started happening again.
Yeah,
Right.
right,
These
right.
gaming events, right?
Right,
So
right.
Call of Duty Mobile has a world championship with a multi-million-dollar prize pool.
And you're going.
And I go,
Yes.
right? And I go kind of sponsored trip by the actual game developer, participate in the event and the side events and promotional events going on at the World Championships. And there's a big fan group there to watch,
I'm sure of it.
thousands of people in this arena watching people play video games. I'm probably blowing people's minds right now that this even happens and exists.
This is the whole reason to have a podcast,
But-
is open people's eyes on new things. Man.
And
What are
so
you talking about?
that environment, which is kind of around that game, and all the content creators and also all of the fans of that game and the people who watch the content are in the room.
Yeah.
People just walk up to you. They're like, I've watched every one of your videos. I'm like, I cannot believe you spent that much time looking at my face. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's Mariah Elizabeth in our house.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on somebody to recognize me around
Yeah.
Charleston.
Hey,
You
this
know what I'm saying?
podcast, I'm telling you.
Blow it up, people. Blow
yeah.
it
But
up.
no, on the real though, so you're going to these things, thousands of people there. You're having these talks, these open talks,
And it's
then
just
now,
confirmation that I'm going in the
Now,
right
have
direction.
you
So,
heard
with
from
the
any
purpose
of
it.
the moms? Have any of the moms written you and
gotta
been like,
talk about the
thank
moms.
you
It's-
for
love the moms.
reaching out to my child?
So
Like,
it's,
I feel like if I was a single mom and you took the time to really be there for my kid in
Does
this
mom know
personal
at this
way-
point? Does mom know that he's like the DMs? Like, I don't know if mom.
So in
mom knows.
many
I guess that's-
cases,
that's a good
the
question.
parents never know.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And,
Right.
and it's actually important to understand the responsibility that comes with
Sure.
having a conversation with a child their parents might not find out about. Like that's a heavy responsibility.
I would
kind of
just want to
influencing,
thank
right?
you.
This is like
Like,
know?
well, it's one of those things where the worst case scenario is I send them a direction that's bad for them and viewed by their parents as bad for them.
because
right?
they're also asking about military experience,
Yeah,
army,
like
and
just many of those questions are, I'm thinking about joining the military, but don't know if it's the right decision for me. That's a heavy.
that's a
a
heavy
heavy
question. Yeah,
question.
how are you going to answer that?
Heavy.
I mean,
I mean, I've got my answers to that, and it's
I'm
really
sure.
like I don't tell people what to do.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
I talk to them about taking responsibility. That's a
There
constant
you go.
theme in this because usually these people come from environments where the people around them don't take responsibility, right?
Right.
And so I talk to them about that. I talk to them about different careers and researching the experience of people in that job and seeing if you identify with that, right? Talking to adults who do that job. Don't take your dad's word. I mean, many times you can, but you have to be the judge of whether you can take your parents' word for what being in the military is like if they've never done it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like email any recruiter and say, hey, can you put me in touch with somebody who does this job? And the recruiter's motivated to do that because he wants to get your enlistment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also talk to them like, hey, recruiters are salesmen.
Mm-hmm.
While they may have your best interests in mind, it is at a lower priority level than filling their quota for what they need for signups. And there's
Quota
reasons
work.
for that, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
it's not that they're bad people.
No,
That's the job.
They got a job.
And so like trying to, again, just inform their decision-making process, not make the decision for them.
All of this happened just organically?
Yeah. Frankly, it surprised me. Right, like it came from left field. We're playing video games. I was like, I didn't mean for it to get this serious.
Give
but
us kind of
kidding.
a little, since we can't watch the video games right now. So, are you talking to the camera? What is it like?
So it started with me like. I tended to be pretty good at these games, right? Not the best. I'm not some pro player, but back in the N64 days, I was just smashing all of my friends, right?
Sure.
Deep satisfaction.
Sure.
Like,
When someone rage quits.
Free dad.
Right.
Anybody who plays understands what a rage quit is. Now, an in-the-room rage quit back in the 90s,
Yep.
deep satisfaction.
Deep satisfaction.
When you make your friend
nothing.
throw the controller. Right.
I'm going to be Googling these terms when
And
I
so-
get home.
So I was pretty good. And so I was like, and I was literally coming out of a teaching job.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, people want to get better at these.
Okay.
I'll gain an audience by making videos about how to do things in the game.
So
Yeah.
you're talking through it while you play
You've
the
never
game.
seen this
playing and
before on YouTube,
explaining
that
it.
stuff?
I watch
Showing
Mariah
people
squishy
things.
makeovers. No, I do not. I've never seen a gaming. But
She's
I'm going
not.
to
She's not your
now.
market. She's not your market. That's
and
fine.
then because
I'm
of my
not your
military
audience.
background and me and just a lifelong fan of John Madden, I got into the commentating casting side.
Sure.
And so now most of what I do with video production is along the lines of like having the conversation with the audience that I talked about,
Yeah.
the meaningful one.
Yep.
And then for the fun side of things, I cast competitive esports events, commentate just John Madden style.
That's
on the mic.
cool.
Very cool.
And
Everyone's
because I
shaking
have the
their heads like
military
this is a thing
background,
that I need to be made aware of.
yeah, I can
That's
speak to the
awesome.
technical military things, and
Yeah.
so I tend to do that for the most realistic video games because that's where my expertise is most applicable.
So we're this is a transition point though for you right now. So you have this channel that you have, but now you're trying to rebrand that channel.
Yeah, and I'm figuring out what the heck that rebrand is going to be because it's not purely gaming. Gaming's just an avenue to start the conversation with the audience that has these problems or needs, and so we'll figure it out.
Is the goal to maintain 2 separate channels?
Sort of.
Double the work? I don't
One is high priority, and really the casting, commentating stuff is typically done on those games channels.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the original gaming channel is probably gonna,
Just-
let it slide. It is what it is. It still gets tens of thousands of views because my videos that I made were with the goal of them being evergreen, not like current news and
your
videos
strategy
and stuff.
comes
And
out
typically,
even
how
in your
long are
gaming
videos?
streamer.
They're getting longer because of the subject matter,
bet.
but in that space, 6 to 10 minutes is the magic zone.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then as the subject becomes more serious, more poignant to whatever the subject matter is, you kind of get into the 12, 18, 22-minute range.
My goodness. Speaking of time right
Yeah,
now, it's
I was going to
2
say, for all of our
o'clock.
listeners,
You got to catch the bus soon, right? So we got to wrap this
meet
up.
the bus, not catch the bus. Meet the bus.
I got to do the same.
But I want people to know where they can go visit his YouTube channel.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Well, let's plug Squeeze first.
Yes, please.
And the reason why it's fun to come on a podcast like this and talk is because generally the audience is the same audience to as Squeeze's customer base.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And so the thing we try and do and the thing we tell people to do is become dangerous with your understanding of these things, knowing it's not your job to be a digital advertiser, right?
Yep.
And so the message we try and put out there at Squeeze is learn the data points that are important on Meta Business Manager. Learn how to look at your Instagram analytics and get some insight into what those numbers mean.
Hire a professional for your Google LSA.
Yeah,
And then it's constantly changing.
well, when you learn those things, what you end up educating yourself on who you really need, what tasks you really need to hire an expert for.
Yeah.
But if you do the homework to learn that, when you come to an agency like Squeeze, you give us better guidance. You're
Being
better
able
able
to
to
speak
explain
the
the
language
intent.
is important. So
And so I
expectations.
am out there preaching get better at these digital marketing platforms and understanding them. Get better than you think you need to, because the better you are at it, the intent is not for you to not have to hire someone to help, right? The intent is when you come to someone like me or anyone sitting here for this help, that you're asking more informed questions, that you're understanding the feedback that they're giving you and the recommendations that they're making. And like that little bit of education goes a long way.
Oh my God, it goes a long way. It makes my heart so warm when a client comes to us that knows our language and knows what they want, knows what they're doing. Just makes the job,
the value in it,
pushes it so much further.
They have
so
their
much
goals
quicker.
in mind. They're looking at their annual marketing budget. This is their goals. This is what they expect from an agency from an ROI standpoint. And then you can partner to make those goals happen.
Yeah, and it's speaking a different language. Every industry has its own language, and imagine going into a room where everyone's speaking a foreign language and trying to get through an
like
intelligent
a gaming
conversation.
language that I've learned today.
Yeah. It's all
been cool.
A unique enough language where if you familiarize yourself with it, you can communicate better with the people you need to communicate
100%,
with. So,
100%.
and then
awesome.
that's same thing with the channel. My little gaming call sign is Mod6, and it's Googleable.
Spelled out.
MODSIX.
Yes.
And then is it squeezemarketing.com?
And squeezemarket.com.
Market.
Squeeze Marketing is held hostage by a domain reseller. And as
when
our
that
business
happens,
grows and does better,
Oh,
I
it's
feel
more
like
expensive?
they track it because they just double the price of that URL every year. But we're well known.
you have
enough
some
where we
cool
don't have to
merch.
do
Just
it.
a side note.
Yeah.
I kind of wore one of your T-shirts a lot. You
Love the branding.
It's purple
Yep.
and it's
You can tell that there's creative
got a
people in the
lemon on it.
building, you know, and you got a cool merch.
I feel like people like to work with other organizations that look like they're having fun with what they do,
Yes.
right? And company culture and how you present yourself to the world is the best indicator of that. And so we take that seriously and value that stuff. And but yeah, I mean, it's we just preach make more informed decisions.
Love
you
it.
know, and
Love it.
And all it takes is a little bit of diligence and self-education, YouTubing, Googling, whatever you need to do. Go to the source where the information is to be able to inform those decisions.
Nice.
nice. Now, are we going to see you at Spark again this year?
I expect so.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, this has been a
Appreciate
pleasure.
you coming on.
We would like to have you back,
our
though,
time.
because
Oh, I'm
this
always down.
conversation could have gone on and on.
Exactly. Gasper's got all kinds of knowledge. In closing, I want to give a shout out real quick to Beve Bene,
Here he goes.
where we're always looking for sponsors, by the way.
Yep.
Where we went this morning to our coffee talk.
They are now our coffee talk
We have all of our coffee talks there now, which is cool. We're gonna have some happy hours there too.
Happy hours,
And I went ahead and got the West Coast Lager. It's a cold IPA. And Beve Bene is
I expect to see you at the
downtown
pool with that
Charleston
this
on the Upper Neck.
Yeah.
Kaz, you got an Italian Pilsner.
Yeah.
That sounded pretty good. Is it still in your truck? Because I want to trade you out one. Oh, you already drank it all? We just got it an hour ago. He's already drank it all.
Hey, I'll plug the podcast for sponsors. Listen, when we talk about advertising and marketing, we talk about target demographic matters.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The people that should be sponsoring this podcast are people that want to connect with business owners.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that is this target demographic. And so
100%.
there's not that many places where you can kind of guarantee a captive audience of business owners. There's value in that.
There's value in that.
There is
There's
value
only
in
one.
that. And we're looking for sponsors, so
We already said that, Goof.
Yeah.
There's one Charleston Marketing Podcast.
that's true.
Thanks so much, Michael, once again for your time. Before we leave, we need to also thank our sponsors. We just talked about that, didn't we?
Cause Films.
Yep, Charleston
Jerry
Radio
Feels
Group.
Good.
Yep, Jerry Feels Good.
Great name.
It is,
I
and he's
know.
really cool,
He's a
man.
cool
We
guy.
talked to him last week or 2 weeks ago or
Last
whatever
week, yep.
time, and he's just a really cool guy. Killing the beats downtown as well.
Yep.
Hustling. Every day we hustle. Okay, if you want to sponsor the podcast, go to podcast@charlestonama.org. You can email us there, and Stephanie will get right back to you on that.
Yes, I will.
And a special shout out to Charleston Radio Group,
Yes, we love the Charleston Radio Group.
Squeeze Marketing.
Yep.
Go
And
to
we are dropping episodes the first Thursday of every month.
Oh, is that what we're doing now?
That's what we're
Officially,
doing.
we're doing first Thursday.
Officially,
Stay
the first
tuned.
Thursday of every month. Sometimes twice a month. So just stay
Oh dear.
tuned.
Well, let's not
Don't
get
you dare
crazy here.
change that
We're getting
channel.
crazy. Crazy.
Thanks, Charleston. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Stephanie, Mike, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.